Howdy, howdy, y'all. Happy Tuesday. I had to check. I had to check whether it was Tuesday, just because I've been doing Tuesday and Friday streams, and there was a part of my brain that just like blanked right as I was about to say the weekday. But happy Tuesday. It's great to be here, and it's great to be joined by Maxi. Maxi, hello, welcome to the stream.
Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you because you've put out recently just absolutely one of the coolest demos I've ever seen. Like I saw it and knew I had to like bring you on to show off how you did it. But before we get into that, would you like to introduce yourself for anyone who hasn't seen you around yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Maxi. I am a mostly front end developer. I work at HelpScout, which is we're building a customer support platform that is super easy to use and works just amazingly well. And yeah, I've been recently involved. Well, playing around with Astro. I am of the generation that kind of learned to code with PHP and um, just basically just raw HTML and CSS and PHP. And yeah, I guess that's why I found Astro so appealing to me that I decided to play with it. And most recently, been playing with these new transition APIs, which are really cool. So I'm excited to chat about those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if because we've done a couple streams lately over on Semantics about Astro. Recently, it was with my uncle. Let me put a link to that in the chat. But
Mhm.
this you mentioned the page transitions API, and this is brand new stuff. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk about like what that is and what it's for and why we have it.
Yeah, so this came out, I think in May. They released an updated demo during Google I/O of this API that is called the Shared Element Transition API. I'm going to share a link to the blog post, and it basically gives you a platform API. It's native to the browser to do this sort of transition in between two states of the app, right? So you might be on page one and you want to transition to page two with not just like having page one disappear and the next one appear, but you might want to do some sort of animation like fade in, fade out animation, something like that. Um, and traditionally, you were able to do this with SPAs with a lot of JavaScript and CSS, maybe in some cases, this kind of animations. But now you're able to do them without any sort of framework, any sort of library. You can just call these platform APIs and have the transitions made for you. So yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right? Because like you mentioned, we have been able to do this with a bunch of JavaScript, but what
Mhm.
makes it different now that this is a web platform API? Like, why does that matter?
So for SPAs, it means that we can do this with a lot of JavaScript. Like I mentioned before, we could do this. For example, if you're doing with React, you can use React Transition Group, I think it's called, or yeah, something like that. The library that lets you do these transitions with CSS. But now we can do this with less JavaScript and with the browser handling all the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to kind of block the main thread with all this work that JavaScript is doing because the browser is going to do all that work for you. And for MPAs, so really quickly, the difference between MPA and SPA. So MPA is a traditional website that performs the routing on the server. So when you navigate from page one to page two, you go to the server, you destroy the page completely, the previous page, and you render the new one. Doing this sort of transition animations on MPAs is currently it's impossible. Like, you can't do that. But this API will allow that. Not at the moment, though. The API only supports SPAs at the moment, but an upcoming version, and there are some discussions on GitHub of how the API will look like. They will support these transitions for MPA, so that will be very exciting.
Yeah, Justin in the chat hadn't heard what we were referring to MPAs, which is a multi-page
Mhm.
app, which is just you've got a bunch of documents on a server, or you hit a server and it generates a document for you each time. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and so the APIs as they exist, you said that they're really built for single page applications at the moment.
Mhm.
But you've been doing some work to get them to work for multi-page applications.
Right. So I'm we're gonna be doing a demo now with Astro, similar to a demo that I did a few weeks ago. And Astro is it's just a fantastic framework for starters, but it's an MPA framework. It doesn't really out of the box support SPAs. So what we're gonna be doing first to be able to use this animation or this transition API with Astro, we're gonna be kind of transforming the Astro MPA into a sort of false SPA, as I call it, because we're gonna give it a client-side
Okay.
router, um, and after doing that, we'll be able to do the animations. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think what I'm gonna do real quick is I wanna um because I wanna start diving into actually like writing the code, but first I'm gonna share my screen and just to call out, y'all go follow Maxi on Twitter. Find cool demos like this. But I want to show you kind of like the demo uh, that you put out there, and that way we can kind of talk it through, like see like visually some of the things that we might expect to see today. So
Hmm.
here's the demo that you've put out. Um, and so that was an actual page navigation, right? Like you just went from page to page. This is an Astro site, but you went from page to page, but it was smooth, it was immersive, it was fluid, it was continuous.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of interaction that we're trying to build, where there's a seamless transition between one page and the next, even though both of these pages are separate pages. They are rendered on the server somewhere, but we are transitioning between them on the client. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I wanna dive into doing this. What say you? Shall we get into some code?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Step one, I previously cloned the repo that Maxi sent me. I just wanted to drop a link in there so y'all know where we're starting from. Um, and then
Hmm.
this is an experimental API, right? So it's not enabled by default.
Correct. Yes. So the first thing we need to do, we can do it now, is go to the. I'm gonna share it in the Twitch. Oh no, I shared the wrong thing. Uh, the Go to this. So we need the requirement is Chrome 104 or later. I think you're on 105, so it should be good. And this is an experimental API, so you need to enable it because it's disabled by default. So yeah, it's called that. You have to go to that URL and change that to enabled.
Oh, I have to relaunch Chrome, but you're on Chrome. Hang on just a sec.
Oh,
Um, we
uh
may I may
oh,
end up dropping this call real quick.
no worries.
Um, hello, hello. Yeah. The perils of having to restart things midstream, huh? Let me. Yeah. All right. Uh, I maybe should have done this ahead of time. Are y'all still there? Can y'all still see and hear? Hopefully things are still fine. Um. All right. Yeah. David, you're absolutely right. It's not live unless you have to restart something. Okay. Let me join this call. Oh man. Wait a sec. Oh! Oh, I see. Okay. I'm using a new service
Oh,
called
I was
Ping.
still.
There we go. Can you Wow, okay.
I'm still
I had to
here.
like restart
Hello.
everything, get access to the call. I couldn't Wow, okay. Wild. Ping is cool. Wow. All right. Yeah, for what it's worth, just so y'all see, if you're doing any sort of streaming, ping.gg is rad. This is what I'm using to bring Maxi into my streaming software. But yeah, so we've
Amazing. So
enabled
I
that.
never dropped the stream.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Amazing.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, we should be good to go now. We should be good.
Perfect.
So,
I can't see your screen anymore
oh, let me fix that real quick.
ping.
Did I share the right screen? I don't know that I shared the right screen. I did not share the right screen. Let me stop that. There we go. It's not live unless it's broken. There we
There you
go.
go.
All right. Cool.
Nice. So yeah, so you told me you pulled this repo already,
Yep.
your local machine, and I believe there is a branch. Are you in the main branch of the repo,
I'm on the
or?
starter branch.
Oh, sorry, perfect. I'm hearing an echo, Michael. I don't know if
Oh, okay.
that's.
Oh man. Are y'all hearing the echo as well? Let's see something. Would you be echoing?
I'm
No
not
echo
sure.
for the chat. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. I wonder if my mic is just extra sensitive on here and you're picking up the fact I'm playing you out of my speakers. Hopefully it's bearable.
Yeah, no worries, no
Okay.
worries.
Cool. All right.
All right. So you have the repo pulled. This is an Astro project. It has a couple of pages in it, so we're not starting from scratch really. But yeah, we're gonna start implementing something. So if you want to run this repo with on the CLI using npm run npm run dev, I believe it is. There you go.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Those should hopefully open
Yeah.
the page we're going to be working on, which is it's a sort of e-commerce website, more or less, for guitars. We're going to see how it looks like.
There is
Did it
something
open?
about my machine whenever I run Astro, like is
Oh,
purely a my thing. Like for whatever reason, if I'm running Astro while streaming, Astro just absolutely hangs. So
there you go.
no knock on the wonderful folks of Astro. This is purely my setup, and purely just when I'm streaming. But okay, yeah. So let's take a look at what we've got here. And so you've built it's a bit of a music themed site, right?
Right. Yeah. And I, full disclosure, I cannot take any credit for the UI of this website because there's a link to a blog post where the original UI was built. So,
Okay.
which I probably share on the screen. But yes, so this is the page we're going to be looking at. A bunch of guitars. The UI looks really, really nice, but like I said, I can't take any credit for it. And there's two pages actually. There's this home page, and when you click on one of those guitars, it'll take you to the next page, which should not be. We need to implement it. So we're gonna do that first, very quickly. So we might go to dive into the code, and first of all, let's see that page is structured. As you can see, we have an index at Astro. That's the index page, of course, where we are showing the list of products. And then we have inside the products folder, we have another Astro component, which is takes an ID.astro, which the route for this would be products / and some ID, right? For example, one,
Okay.
2, 3. And as you can see, both of these components, the index and the ID, they look almost exactly the same. And that's because what we're doing, and this is sort of a convention that we're using for when we transform this page into an SPA, is that we have kind of the content of the page be part of a separate component, which in this case I'm just calling a fragment. So the actual contents of the pages are in those fragment components that are also on the pages directory.
Okay. And so we want to be implementing the product details fragment.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you go there, you'll see that it's mostly just raw HTML page with some stuff. Yeah. So we can delete all of this. We can remove all of it. And we're gonna be doing, so this is another thing I didn't mention. This is using Astro SSR. So by default, Astro does static site generation. So it would create like HTML files during build time when you create an Astro page. But now we're going to be doing SSR, which means that we are running this on a server. So the pages will be created on the fly whenever you request one of these pages.
Okay.
And that's important because we're going to be fetching the data from an API. You could do this with SSG as well if you don't want to do SSR. But since we're building a website that could potentially have thousands and thousands of products, then SSG could become like a bottleneck in those cases. So we're doing SSR. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create one of those code fences for Astro, which lets you execute the JavaScript that will execute at build time or in the server. And here, let me actually pull up my cheat sheet. We're going to be making a request here to the API. Okay. So first of all, we need to grab the ID. So as you can see, as you saw, this file is called id.astro, and that ID is actually a parameter that we can get. So here we can say const and then open bracket, like we're going to destructuring an object, and grab the ID from the astro.params object. So that will give us the ID. When we navigate to products 1, 2, 3, that ID variable will be 1, 2, 3, right?
Cool.
And then we're going to make a fetch request. So we're going to say const response equals fetch, and I forgot I should have sent you the URL of this before, but there you go. That's the URL of the API that we're going to be using. This is also like a very simple API.
Gotcha.
I'm going to pass the to the API to the endpoint. We're going to append the product ID at the end.
Like that?
Yep, perfect.
Cool.
And I think we need to await the fetch, right? We need to await that fetch call. In Astro, we can do top level await, so we don't need to wrap this in an async function. So in the next line, we can do we can say const data equals to await the response.json of this call, right? So we have the data now, and now since we're not going to be building all the HTML for the details page, we can just render an Astro component that we already created. So below the code fence, below the line 5, you can render the component, which is an Astro component called product details.
Product details. Okay.
Yeah. You might get auto importing, maybe not. If you don't, you can import it from the components folder, which is I think 3 levels down.
Got it. Yeah. And is it a named export?
It's a default export. I believe all Astro components. When you're importing an Astro component, it's always a default export.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's 3 levels back, and then components, product details.astro.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And to product details, we need to pass the data. So product details receives product prop, which we can just pass that data object that we have because the type is exactly as the data returned by the API.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this should work now. If we navigate back to the browser, you should see that now we get a product page for every time we click on a guitar. See if that's true.
All right. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Right,
gotcha. I do kind of want to look at that product details component just to see, like, it was doing a lot of things there, like that basically the whole page contents were in there, but I just kind of want to see more clearly what's going on. So
and it's just HTML. As you can see, this is just HTML. We are kind of pasting the data that we're passing in as a prop.
Yeah.
But it's just HTML. There's a bit of a loading screen, but yeah, it's nothing more than that.
Nice.
Which is one of the really nice things about Astro, is just HTML.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's nothing unusual about any of this except for, the JSX-esque brackets there.
Right.
But
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah. Okay. So now we have this, which is a traditional MPA, as we were talking about before. If you navigate back, that will request the home screen again, which is another page request, right? So the first step before we do the transitions, we had to transform this into like a sort of SPA, and we're
Okay.
going to do that with the navigation API. And again, this we only have to do this step now. What we're going to do because the API doesn't support MPAs at the moment.
But it's going
Once
to.
it's going to in the near future, hopefully. But for the meantime, we have to do something like we're going to do now, which we're going to use the navigation API. The navigation API is another sort of experimental API. It's much more stable than the transition API, but still is not implemented across all browsers. And you can think of the navigation API as kind of like the evolution of the history API.
Okay.
If you look at client-side routers like React router or any router for any framework that works on the client, they use a history API to kind of intercept the navigations to different pages. And instead of having the browser go to the next page, they say, okay, I'm going to handle the rendering of this new component on the client. But it's a bit clunky. It has some things that are not. It predates SPAs, so it wasn't built with the needs of the SPAs in mind. So the navigation API kind of changes that. So that's why we're gonna be using that API.
Gotcha.
All right. So if you go to, there should be a file called spanavigation.js. In the
Is it in
scripts, there should be
scripts?
a script. Yes, there you go. And it should be empty. We're importing a couple of, or a few utility methods that we might or might not use. But for now, we're gonna be working on that. Yeah, we can. I guess we can talk about this once we start using them.
Yeah.
They're doing a bit of boilerplatey stuff that we need to do if we're kind of building this for like a real application. But for now, we're gonna start by doing this intercept of the navigation request, which we do by hooking into the the navigation object. So there's a global object called navigation, which we can call. So we're gonna do navigation dot add event listener. I'm going to listen for the navigate event.
Okay.
I'm going to pass a callback as a second parameter here, which can be an arrow function. And this callback receives an object called, we're going to call it navigate event, which contains information about the navigation we're about to do.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so this is a global event, and this is kind of the main difference between this API and the history API, and is that with the history API, we don't really have a way to intercept all navigations. We have to manually say, okay, when someone clicks on a link or a button or submits a form, then do this. With this,
Gotcha.
we are intercepting all types of events, which is, it's handy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and with this, let me actually pull up here. All right. So, as I said before, we want to know which page we're navigating to. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the HTML fragment that corresponds to that page that we're navigating to, and we're going to paste it in the DOM without having to navigate to the new page.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So yeah, I mean, the file's called SPA navigation, but like yeah, so you're basically prefetching all of the assets, and then instead of like doing a hard page load, you're just saying actually the DOM looks like what the new page would look like.
Yeah, we're basically saying, okay, I'm about to navigate to the product details page. Now, instead of loading the entire page, I want to fetch the piece of HTML for the body of the new page, and I want to replace the body with this new content, right?
Interesting.
So I
Okay.
don't want to request the entire page again. I don't want to do a full page navigation. I just want to change this div in the DOM with the new contents of the data that we're going to
Gotcha.
get, right?
Again, the reason we have to do this is because currently Page Transitions API doesn't support multi-page applications. It only supports single
Exactly.
page. So we have to basically create our own single page app.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So this is essentially a client-side router. So we're building a router the client, which is what SPAs actually do. So, all right, now that we have this, we have to first get the URL of the page we're navigating to, like the destination URL.
Okay.
We can get that. We're gonna define a constant called toURL, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna say this is a new URL, so we're gonna use the URL object, and I'm gonna pass in the navigate event .destination.url.
Okay.
So that's an URL object. Yes, that URL. That's an URL object with the page we're navigating to.
Cool.
And we can also grab the path from this, so like everything after the domain name, by saying we can define another constant called toPath. I'm gonna say that this is equals to the toURL dot path name.
Cool.
Right. So in this case, when we navigate to the page that is localhost /products/1, toPath will be /products/1. Right?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna define a handler, and this is just an asynchronous function.
Okay. Do we want to do that in this callback or outside?
Yes, inside, like right next to that toPath, we're gonna say const handler, and we're gonna assign it to an asynchronous function because we want this to return a promise. And inside of this function, we're gonna make a fetch request, and in this we can do like const response equals await fetch.
All right.
And the URL that we're fetching is going to be /fragments, and then right next to it is going to be the path, the toPath that we are defining. Yeah, and I don't think we need that second slash because the path already starts with a slash. So
okay. I see. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, this one right here. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So this will make up a request, and as you can see in the if you show the directory.
Okay.
If you show the pages, right, we have this fragments folder, and as you can see, the files inside the fragments, they have the same structure as the files in the pages directory. And this is just a convention that we're using. We don't have to follow this path, but I thought it would make it easier.
Okay. Gotcha. So we're this is just the HTML that makes up the specific page contents for this specific product, but
Exactly.
it gets nestled inside of this larger products page, which is what we actually saw when we did the navigation. Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yeah, you can think of the fragment as just the body, the main content of the page, and the actual page is the page with everything else: the header, the head tag on the HTML, and all of that, right?
But in this case, it is worth calling out in this case then, the fact that we can do this fragments thing. This is specifically because you've set up this project to do that in that way.
Exactly. This is a convention because we can request the fragment for any path, just knowing the path name. We don't have to do these things this way. We can define fragments in a different folder and just have a map, maybe a map of path to fragment. We can do that definitely. But in this case, it will make it easier if the path name of the fragment just matches the path name of the page.
And just to I guess really, really hammer this home, I can go here into my browser and I can say fragments products 5, and we're gonna get
exactly.
Yeah.
You're gonna get just the HTML.
Yeah, it doesn't have the CSS that was applied at the page level, but yeah, okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
All right.
It's just the HTML, no CSS, no head tag, no header, as you can see. And since it's just HTML, we can grab it as a piece of text. So now we can define in the next line, we can say that we want to get the response.text.
Okay. I'll just call that, I guess, HTML, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That text, and then you have to await this as well.
And okay, and that's a method. Okay. Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now we have the HTML for the new page, And what we need to do is going to update the contents of the page. Now, there is a function already that we are important that's called update the DOM somehow. We can see how that looks like, but it's very simple. Like, we're not doing anything super fancy here. We're just grabbing an element and we're
Gotcha.
just setting the inner HTML.
Okay. All right.
And this will work really well for us. It has a couple of gotchas. One is that using inner HTML doesn't support streaming of HTML. So if we had, I don't think Astro supports kind of SSR streaming, but if it did, if we're building with a backend that supports streaming, inner HTML won't work that well for that. So for that, there are another method we can use instead of this. But the main drawback of this approach is that when you set the inner HTML of a div, it won't execute scripts automatically. So if the
Gotcha.
page had JavaScript, if the page that we're loading had any JavaScript, we will have to kind of recreate those script tags using the DOM for them to execute. But we don't have any JavaScript to worry about in this case, so this works
Right.
really well for us.
I am thinking that at one point when I cleared out the product page, I think or was it here? I think I might have cleared out a content div. Do I need to add that back in somewhere?
Oh, no.
Okay, cool.
No, this content div is in the layout, which we can take a look at
Okay.
this inside of layouts, layout.astro, and it's
Okay.
just a div.
Yeah.
So you can call that update the DOM somehow function.
Gotcha. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep. All right. Yeah, we'll update the DOM somehow. All right.
And
That's a
we're gonna pass
beautiful
that.
name, by the way. I wish I could. I wish I could bring a name like this into production.
It's a good name, actually, right? It doesn't say anything about how you're updated the DOM, so it's a good abstraction, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all we need to do now. One more thing. So we just created this handler function, but we're not doing anything with it yet. So
Right. Okay.
right after the handler function, we need to call navigate event dot. I'm going to call the transition method called transition while. And inside of this, we're going to call the handler function.
You said transition Y?
Oh, sorry, while.
While.
W-A-L,
Okay.
yes.
And handler.
Yes, I'm gonna call the handler actually because this method accepts a promise, which is what we're returning with the handler.
I see now. Okay.
Yeah. So now, if we save this and go back to our page or website.
Yeah. Let me bring us back to the home page.
Yes.
And so if I click Space Fantasy here, it did I mean, it looks the same because we haven't added any fancy transitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that should have, yeah.
Let me get my video to catch up. I think I'm seeing an old. I'm still looking at the detail. Oh, are you on the details page now?
Yeah, I'm on the details page.
Can you Can you go back to the home page and then click again on the product?
Yeah. So, yep. I'll click on Mighty 80s here.
Yep. Yeah, but this is now this is like an SPA type of navigation. We didn't change the page. So if you wanna make this clear or more clear that there's a difference between what we had before and now, you can go to the layout.astro page or component. And when we are rendering the header, you can pass to the header there on line 33. You can pass a prop that is called with animation and another called with counter. We're gonna add both to see how it looks. Yeah, we can say just with animation. The default I think is true, so that's what we're about. And also with counter.
With counter. Okay.
Mhm. And these are just visual, I guess, visual helpers to help us see the difference between the traditional MPA navigation and this SPA navigation that we're building.
Gotcha.
Uh,
So that would be if I go to Diamond Crafter here. Didn't see anything different this time.
um,
Oh, it could just be that Astro's taking a while to rebuild too
oh,
on my
maybe.
machine. Yeah.
So you should see the header should have a little animation.
Try refreshing the. Oh, okay. Okay. So we've got an animation. We've got a counter. This counter should not be interrupted. The animation shouldn't be interrupted.
Exactly.
And I'll just go here. Yeah, counter's still going. Animation's still going.
Hmm.
Nice. Okay. Oh, that's a good illustration of that. Well done.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess it's helps visualize because right now we didn't do anything super fancy, so it's hard to see the difference between what we did before and now.
Mhm.
But yeah. So all right. Now that we have this, we can start using the transitions, and
Yeah.
it's fairly simple. Once we have this, we can go back to the SPA navigation file that we were working on.
Right. Uh. Oh, the editor has decided to think about things. Okay. Cool. 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 Yep.
And in the here in the we can go back to the where we update in the DOM, and we can comment
Yes.
that out. The call to update DOM somehow, comment
All
that
right.
out. So we're not going to be updating the DOM right away. We're going to do it as part of a transition.
Okay.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to call we're going to create a new transition object. So we're going to say const transition equals to document create document transition.
Okay. And this
And
this right here, this is part of the experimental APIs, right? You wouldn't have, or we
exactly.
wouldn't have this if we hadn't turned on. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Gotcha.
This is only available because we have enabled that feature flag. Um, and now with this transition object, it has a start method that we can call. So we can do transition.start,
Okay.
and we can pass a callback to the transition.
All right. And any old new callback?
Any callback doesn't have to be async. And here we can now we can update the DOM.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
the call to update the DOM, we can do it inside of this call.
All right.
So if we see how it looks now, we will see that it should transition between the two pages with a sort of fade in, fade out kind of animation.
Yeah, my frame rate is borked, but yes, it's so subtle, but like hopefully
We
chat
can
you can see this just fine. Let me know. Hopefully the frame rate lines up there, but it's just a subtle kind of jump.
and we can actually, since this can be targeted with CSS, we can now slow down the transition so that it's more visible.
Okay.
So if you go to, I think there's a file called transitions.css. Should be a file over there.
The hell.
Mhm.
That's
Yes.
CSS. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an empty file. And now here we can target the elements that make up the transition. So basically, the way it works is what we call transition.start, that grabbed a screenshot of the page before updating the DOM.
Okay.
Um, and then when the callback that we passed finished executing, it grabbed another screenshot, this time containing like the new updated DOM. And then the transition happens. It's just a CSS animation happening between the incoming and outgoing screenshots.
Okay.
So in this case, one is fading in, one is fading out. And the way we target those screenshots is using a pseudo element CSS value, I guess, or target.
Okay.
So we can do colon colon, and it's called page dash transition
Page dash transition. Okay.
dash outgoing dash image.
All right.
And here we can pass in parentheses after image, we can pass the name of the element, because we can transition multiple elements. In this case, we're transitioning the entire page, and that entire page has an ID called root. So we can pass root here. And I'm sorry, it's not an ID, it's a tag, so we don't have to prepend with.
Okay, so
That's
like that. Just
right. That's
okay.
right. Yeah, and we can also target the incoming image. So if we you can add like a second line there to target the incoming image.
Okay.
And to both, we can say that the animation duration we want to be like 5 seconds, for example.
Gotcha. Should we keep these two separate, you think, or are we just gonna basically do the
We
same
can combine
things?
them. Yeah, we can
Okay.
combine them. So
Gotcha. Oh, you said 5 seconds.
yeah,
Animation duration. There we go.
exactly.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can combine the rules to we don't have to duplicate the CSS.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Happy with that. All right.
Yeah. So now if you refresh the page, you should see that it takes 5 seconds to do the transition, which should be hopefully more visible. There we go.
Okay.
This is slow
It's nice and
transition.
graceful. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have this is the default behavior. We didn't define anything about fading in or fading out, right? We just
Right.
use the defaults, and but we can of course change those. So I believe I sent you some animations uh, via
Yes.
chat
Oh,
before that you can
you're
change.
gonna have to resend that to me because I restarted
Oh,
the browser.
absolutely. Let me see.
Cool, cool, cool.
So these are just CSS, regular CSS animations. Um, so I just sent it.
And am I putting this? I'm not putting this inside the. I'm just putting it here at the like.
Yeah, you
Back
can
of the
put it
browser.
anywhere outside of this file. I don't think you need to do it before or after. I don't think. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
now,
thought my editor
oh, we
was
have.
gonna reformat that for me, but alas. I'm listening. You go ahead. I'm just gonna make this a little more readable.
All right. So now we're gonna have to split the two, because we're gonna have a different animation for the incoming and outgoing
Okay.
images. So we're gonna have to split the rule at the top.
Right. Yeah. Let me go ahead and do that. All right. And we'll
Yeah.
have this top one be our outgoing. We'll have this
Hmm.
bottom one be our incoming. All right.
Yeah. So now in the outgoing, we're gonna use the fade out and slide down animations. We're gonna do both of those. As you can see, we have 4 animations here: fade in, fade out, slide up, and slide down.
Okay.
So on the top one, we're gonna do animation, and I can send you the whole screen, so we don't have to type it down.
Oh, if you'd like, yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Okay.
it has the cubic Bezier curve uh, kind of parameters that.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay.
And I'll send you the one for the incoming as well.
Doke. And there we go. All
Yeah.
right. Cool. And so this cubic Bezier, this is so it's doing two things. It's fading in and it's sliding down. So I'm
Hmm.
excited to see what
So
that looks
the
like.
the out the outgoing image is gonna fade out and slide down, and the incoming image is gonna fade in and slide up, right? In this case.
Gotcha.
Um,
Back to the home
so
page.
yeah, if you click on the cross icon on the top right, that
Yeah.
should take you back to the homepage. That's a regular HTML link.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna click this. The browser's okay. Yeah, the browser's not entirely happy with me, but yeah, I see what.
Yeah, this
Okay.
might not be the best type of animation to maybe to demo this, but yeah, we changed the default behavior, which was the fade in, fade out. Like it's
Yeah.
moving around a little bit. But yeah, we can comment it out. We're gonna go back to this animation later. We're gonna use it for something else. We're gonna reuse it.
Okay.
But yeah, for now you can comment that out. At
All right.
least those. Yeah.
That
There we go.
that.
All right. So far, what we did was we're transitioning between the two pages, and we're transitioning them as a whole, right? We're not targeting different elements. We're just transitioning the entire thing.
Mhm.
But the API provides a way to transition multiple elements separately with different animations and different transitions. So what we can do here is in this page, we can have that guitar image on the home page to kind of expand into the full image on the
Okay.
next page,
And
right?
this is when we were showing the Twitter video you'd posted. You were doing that with movie posters, like having that just kind of move around as, like the idea of like having something consistent that like persists between, quote unquote pages.
Exactly. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great way to show. Yeah, to show that where this element on page one exists on page two. Like it gives you context.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can do that, and by doing that, to do that, we need to apply what's called a transition tag to an element on the page. In this case, it's going to be the movie poster. I believe those on the details page, they have a class called product. If you go to, yes, the image, you have a class called product image, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna define that class in the CSS file.
Gotcha. All right. So let me put it in
Yeah.
just here, and it's just
Yeah.
product. Oh,
Exactly.
product
Product image.
image.
And we're gonna set two attributes. One is called page dash transition dash tag.
Okay.
And here we can pass any value we want. We're gonna pass product image as well so that it matches the class name.
Okay. Product image like this.
Mhm.
Okay.
We can say product that dash image.
Okay.
I don't think it matters too much, but just in case.
Sure.
And then the second property is going to be one that is required. It's called contain or contain paint, and the value is going to be paint.
Paint.
This one is to, yeah, this one we're saying that the kind of that no elements are overlapping the contents of this image, right? And this is kind of like a requirement for doing these transitions that I don't know exactly if they need the contain paint property or just they need like a new stacking context, similar to when we have like a position relative or position absolute, right?
Okay.
Um, but the first tag there is the one that is defining the transition tag, and now we can basically what the browser is going to do is that when an element has a transition tag, it will take a separate screenshot of that element.
Oh,
So
okay.
we can transition between we can animate that element separately from the rest of the page, right?
Gotcha. So I'm expecting to be able to do something like copy these down here, and instead of saying root in here, I'm
Hmm.
expecting to say product image.
Exactly. Yes, you can
Okay.
do that. Yeah, you can definitely do that, and you can control the animation, the duration, all of that of these elements.
Gotcha.
Now, the only thing now is that that product image only exists on the detail page, right? Because on the index page,
Okay.
we can't really give the tag, the product image tag, to every image on that document, because the browser then won't know when to which image you use to transition
Yeah.
to the next page, right? So we have to do we're gonna have to do this with JavaScript. And we can do this in the SPA navigation file that we have.
Okay. Um, and what are we just when you my may I take a guess? We
Yes.
my guess is that on this navigation event, like probably as part of our somewhere in this event, we would query for the specific image in the like link that was clicked, and
Yes,
we'll add like a class or some unique selector to it, and then we can use that as our transition tag.
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And we have to do this before before we update the DOM. So
Okay.
um, we can do this before starting the transition. Yeah, we have to do this before starting the transition. Actually,
All right.
yeah.
Cool. So let
So before
me.
you call
Yeah.
transition start, yes.
Yeah.
And there is actually a helper function that over there is called get link,
Okay.
and that should give you, if you pass the path, the to path here,
Okay.
that should give you the anchor tag element or the link element for the link we're navigating to.
All right.
Right. And now with here we can say we can query the within the click link, we can query the product image. Yeah.
Yep. And I could just do image, right? You don't have multiple images in there.
I believe so. Yeah, I think this should work. I didn't check, but yeah, we can do that.
I can confirm it real quick. So
You can go to card.astro. That's it. That's the component that
okay,
has the UI.
gotcha. Card.astro. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
just
only
one.
image, but you know what? I'll go
Mhm.
ahead and use the class that's been set here for that.
Mhm.
Okay, there we go. And my guess is we would do image.class list dot add. And then do you have a name you like to use for this?
Well, we can add the same class name we already defined, that is product image, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Because the idea is we just want to give it the transition tag, and that product image class is doing that, deciding the transition tag.
gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. So the only bit of cleanup that we need to do is um, when we start the transition, but before the update DOM, we want to actually remove the class name.
Okay. So here gonna be image.classlist.remove product image.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that should be it. I think that should now transition between the two images. If you go
All right.
to,
Do we need to? Do we want to? What do we want to have in our CSS for this?
we don't need to have anything. We can just yeah, we can just use the default animations
Okay.
between because the API will also automatically transition the position and the size of
Oh.
the elements.
Oh. Okay. Oh, that's cool. That is so cool. Um.
So if you go back, yeah, we have to do something else to transition back, because on
Oh.
this page that
Okay.
the transition the link doesn't exist, right? We're querying the link, but it
Yeah.
doesn't exist on the page. So you might
Yeah. I
need to
was.
refresh the page here because we,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
But you should see, yeah, it should now expand. Yeah, and you can try it with any link. Um, yeah. So yeah, and then we can yeah, we can I guess handle the back case where
Yeah.
we're navigating back. To do this, so we have to do this with JavaScript, because we now need to do kind of the opposite. Um, we
Okay.
need to find we need to find the link after we've updated the DOM, right?
Okay.
So let me think. We can do this in a couple different ways. I think probably the easiest way will be to, so there's a utility function there that I am in, should be
Okay.
get navigation type. Yeah, get navigation type. That basically returns a string that's either home to product or product to home, based on the path that you're gonna pass, right? So it's saying if we're navigating from the home page to the product page, it will return home to product. So we
Gotcha.
can call this function. this function that I believe it accepts both paths, the from path and the to path. Oh, we don't
Okay.
have the from path. Sorry, we need to define the from path first.
Gotcha.
Um,
That's just
and that is just going to be location.path name.
path equals location dot path name.
Yes.
There we go. And then where do we want to call our get navigation type? Like, where's the best place in here to do that?
We can add just below that line, below line 13, I think we can just call it
Okay.
there. And yeah, we just define a navigation type object and sorry, variable. We pass those exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then we could do if navigation type is home to product,
Mm-hmm.
then we want to do our handler and our transition while, right? Like we just want to move both of these up.
Yeah. I think we can move both. Yeah.
Is there a way you'd prefer to do it?
No, that's no, that will work. I think we only need to move the handler. Let me think.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, but then we need to define the handler outside of the if. So that's fine. It doesn't
Yeah,
really
we'll
matter.
have it in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if the navigation type is going the other way, which would be
Mm-hmm.
product to home,
Mm-hmm.
then we're gonna need a different handler.
Yes. And will be
And
largely the same as the other hand. Like we can just copy that and
all
make
right.
the adjustments, I guess.
Yeah.
So the fetch call, everything is just the same because we are requesting the fragment from the path. But now, let me see. Now we have to get the when we get the link, we're gonna do it inside of the transition.
Okay. So we'll move this down. All right.
Mm-hmm. And it's inside of the transition and after updating the DOM, right? Because the link exists on the page only after we updated the DOM with the new index page, right?
All right.
So we get the link, we get the image, and we add the class name here.
Gotcha. So like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
Okay.
then the removal of the class name, we also need to remove the class name. And we can do this in the, we can do after the start method finishes, we can chain .then.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
.then. So that
Then.
will be after the transition happens. Now remove the class name. And we need to do this because if you go back to the homepage, right? If we don't remove that class name from that element, then the next time you click a different element, then two elements will have the class name, right? And the browser will not know which one is you use to do the transition.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So now if you navigate also when you navigate back.
Let me refresh.
Yeah, just.
All right. So there we're able to go to this page.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I click our X, it does take us back.
Uh-oh.
I think I was expecting a bit of a smoother transition.
It should be smooth. Maybe we're not. Let's see. What could
Yeah, it just
be?
kind of jumps back.
Yeah, it could be because it's not finding. Oh, I think go back to the. Yes, because I think. Oh, when we are fetching the link, when you work on the get link function, I think we need to pass the from path here because we are fetching the link that has the URL of the page we are currently at. Remember that in this scenario, we are on the product page and we're navigating back to the home page.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right. And so having done that, we think that this is gonna fix our
I
transition.
believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and then Mayank thinks that the image might not exist in then. Oh, no, there we go. Nice.
Navigate back. Yes.
All right.
Image actions isn't done. I don't.
Um.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh
right. So
yeah.
image, we need to define image outside of the transition. So
Okay.
yeah, which is defined as a let
Oh yeah.
binding, I
Gotcha.
guess, and then we, yeah, that's a good call.
All right.
Yeah.
Give it another refresh. That seems to be necessary. Uh. Nice. Then I'll let that finish, because why not? And that's just kind of zap back there, but it's
Yeah.
very cool. That is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, so we're not handling things like latency in this example, but we could definitely, like, for example, if the request takes too long, right? We would run into a case where we click on the link, the URL updated to the new page, but I'm still looking at the old page because the new page fragment is still fetching, right? So we can fix this in a couple ways. One is using prefetching that kind of solves the issue, but we can't do kind of prefetch every product detail page. We have to choose, the most popular one or something like
Sure.
that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, or we can do some templating as well. If we want to update, we could update to a template instantly, and then let it finish. And once it finishes, we load it. Once the actual data is loaded, we replace the template with the actual data.
Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
So we can try to do something like that. Let me see if I have.
Sure.
Um, yeah,
Let's go for it. Do you? Yeah. You're checking your
yeah.
notes for that.
I'm checking my notes. Let me see. I don't really have very good notes, so let me see if I can make sense of what I had here. But yeah, basically we want to do. Oh, and we can try this if you want to. If you want to remove the animation delay so that it's, or make it, not so
Yeah.
big, maybe like a second or something.
Yeah. Just a second all around.
Yeah, just a second should be good. And then what we can do is we can delay the request from the API. So if you go back to that id.astro fragment, there you go. You can pass a query param to the URL of the API called
Okay.
delay. You can pass here like 3 seconds or something.
Okay. Is that just gonna be 3?
Sorry, it's 3,000. It's in
3,000.
milliseconds.
Okay.
Yes. So now you should see what we were talking about, where you're on the homepage, you click on a product, but that product takes 3 seconds to load, but you're still looking at the homepage, right? You don't have any visual
Ah.
cues. You don't have any visual
Yeah.
cues that something is happening. One thing that I didn't mention, if you go back, and do this again, you will see that the fav icon in the browser kind of starts spinning when you
Yes.
are loading a new page, right? And that's because we get this for free from the navigation API. This is something that you don't get when you're using the history API. You have to kind of build this yourself. But with navigation API, it's basically mimicking a native browser navigation,
Okay.
and you get all of the benefits that come with that. You get all the accessibility features that come with that, because you are announcing, the user that
Oh
the page is
bless.
actually loading.
Oh
So you get all of
bless.
that for free.
Oh my god. Finally, routers that make sense.
Yes, and it has a bunch of other features. Like it handles scrolling automatically. It handles focus state, so it's a really good API.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so yeah, we have a slow network request now,
Yeah.
and we can do what we talk about, where we're gonna, instead of waiting for the data to finish and then update the DOM, we're gonna update the DOM right away with a template, and then once the data comes in, we're going to replace the template with the actual data.
Okay.
So first thing we need to do is we need to let's go to the index.astro fragment.
Got it. And
And
there we go. Okay. Index.astro fragment.
mhm. Let me, there we go. So here we are mapping this we didn't see this file before, but we're just making a fetch call to some API endpoint. We're mapping through the products, and we are just rendering the car components, right? So what we can do here is below the car component, right, in the next line, we can actually render the product details. I forgot how it's called. Product details component. That is the one that we are using for the product details fragment. So it's the same Astro component.
Okay.
And you get the auto import, which is really nice.
All right. Yep.
And here we're gonna pass the product. We're gonna pass the product object just like that product we already have defined there. So we just say product equals product.
All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I forgot. So we're gonna wrap these details, the product details, in a template element. So we're gonna create a template with an ID. We can give it whatever ID we want, as long as it has the kind of the ID of the product.
Okay. Wait. So ID of the product you said? So like.
Yeah. So it can be like product dash ID, for example.
Okay. Gotcha. I see. Um.
Yeah. Exactly. So now we have this template, and here we have one template for each card on the page. In theory, if we were doing a real website for, I guess, for performance reasons, we only have one template, and then we replace the contents of that template with the product that was clicked. But in this case, this is much easier, so we're gonna just do that.
Okay.
So now, if we go back to the SPA navigation page, file. When we are doing the home to product navigation, when we are updating the DOM, instead of updating the DOM here with the HTML, we're gonna get the template data from the DOM. It should already be a template here. So we're gonna say document.get element by ID and the ID of our template.
Okay. And get element by ID. This should be
Product dash. And we don't have the ID here. We only have
Yeah.
there's a get path ID utility that should be included already. There you go.
Gotcha.
You can pass the to path to that function, and that will just
Okay.
give you the ID from the path.
Right, and this is gonna be to path. Right.
Yep.
And use that new ID here. And then
And now instead of exactly, that will be template dot inner HTML. So we're gonna grab the contents of the template. I'm gonna update it on with that. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So now we can do we're still making the fetch. So this still not gonna work very well because we're making the fetch call before. So we're gonna move the fetch call to after we do the transition. So
okay. Gotcha.
we can change the .then to function to the start method. Yeah.
All right.
And we're gonna move all the fetching code to these functions. We're gonna do it after the transition.
Gotcha. And is that just it would be the const response and the HTML and
yes. And we need another call to update the DOM, this time with the real HTML.
Okay. I see. Got it. Okay. Gotcha. The async, use that await, and then update the DOM somehow. There it is. It took a while for the tooltip to come up. And it'll just be HTML. Right? So we're doing like two substitutions where it's like we've already got access to the template information, right? We've already like rendered that on the page, so we can go ahead and start using that. And that's our first substitution. And then the second substitution is the like real new page content.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, no matter how slow the request is for a new page, we're still going to transition instantly, but this time with a template. And then once the data loads, it's gonna replace that with the actual content.
Cool. Okay. That's so cool.
Yeah, and another kind of nice thing is that we didn't have to create this template separately. We use the same exact Astro component that we're using for this view to create our template. So that's uh, another cool benefit, I guess.
Yeah. That is so nifty. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything more you wanted to show off or work through while you've got the floor?
Um, let's see. I think we cover. Well, we we could animate. There's some things we could. Like I have on the final. If you look at the final version of the animation, it also kind of expands that block of that kind of gray div that you have there.
Okay.
We could do that as well with kind of the same. Yeah, we can I guess
Yeah.
add some niceties to this animation to make it more complete. So all right, so we're gonna animate that box as well, and we're gonna
Yep.
animate the contents of the page. So
Okay.
the text on the details page, we're gonna make it showed up. So we need to capture those as separate screenshots. So we're gonna create a couple of new class names.
Okay.
So
And
it
are
can be just
these
copies
already?
of.
Yeah. Are these already in the markup?
They are, yes, they are in markup, so we don't need to change them.
Okay.
So we're gonna call them product dash bg for the background and product dash info.
Okay. Here
Um,
we're changing the
oh
classes in the
no,
markup.
no, we don't need to. No, we don't need to
Okay.
change
Okay.
the template. We can just define the class names here,
Okay.
and these exist on the details page. They don't exist on the
Oh. Okay.
on the index page, I guess.
All right. So then
Oh,
it's
it's just a dash, product
a
dash
dash.
bg. There you
Cool.
go.
We're good.
And we can copy the what we have above, the transition tag and the content paint.
All right.
Um,
This needs a new name,
and
right? New
exactly,
tag.
we can just say product vg, and then we're gonna define another class name called product dash info. Again, just a copy of those.
All right.
Yeah, and if you look at the product details component, the Astro file, that should already have those class names applied.
Yeah. Okay.
Product info, product issue. Perfect. So for the info part, we're actually gonna reuse those animations that we commented out here.
Okay.
Um, yeah, those commented lines, we're gonna reuse them, but this time we're gonna apply them to the product info tag. So we can just
Gotcha.
copy those. Yeah.
Yep. That product info.
Mhm.
Oh, nuke the durations here
Yeah.
and restore the animations. All right.
Mhm. And actually, for the incoming image one, we're gonna add also an
Yes.
animation delay. We're gonna set an animation delay, and let's say 1 second, because we have these other transitions that take 1 second to. So we're gonna add this to animate after the
Okay.
other ones. All right. So now for the product info, we don't need to do anything special because product info only exists on the details page.
Okay.
But product bg actually that we have the same kind of problem that we had with the image, is in that we need to add the tag kind of with JavaScript. So we don't need to define
Gotcha.
any new css for the
Do we not need like incoming and outgoing images for product BG?
um yeah, if we want to define a specific animation duration, we can. If
Oh,
not, it
right.
would
Yeah,
just use the
there's
default.
defaults. Okay. I
Mhm.
can just comment that out.
Yeah,
Things. Oop,
we actually don't
uh,
need any of those. Yeah, unless we want the to
yeah.
slow down the animation duration. So should be
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So I'll just use the defaults for those. Okay. So we need um Detail. Okay, so what are
Uh,
we doing here?
yeah, we need to do the same kind of the same treatment that we did for the image, but this time for the background, that product BG object. So here we need to again query for the product
Y-
background.
Are we doing that? Sorry, are we doing this in home to product? We are, right?
We need to do it in
Okay,
both places because this is the same kind of scenario that we have for the image, right?
gotcha.
So here we can say, yeah, background can
Click.
be click linked that query selector, and I think it's product dash dash bg maybe.
Dash dash BG? I thought it was just dash BG.
We're getting the class name that we have defined in the car component. Oh, sorry, it's underscore underscore bg. So if you go to the
Details under, right? Right?
no, no,
This.
we're looking at the card.astro
Oh,
component.
okay. Gotcha.
Yes,
I see. Okay.
yes,
Gotcha. Okay.
we're targeting the element in the card before transitioning to
Yeah.
the details page.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's underscore underscore. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. And now we need to give it a class name product dash bg. Could have used different, less confusing class names here.
Yeah, I feel like if this were, if I were going to town on like setting this up on like my own site, I
Yes.
personally would probably use convention of like home product background or something like that, and then like
Yes, absolutely. So in
yeah.
this case, so to make so product underscore underscore bg is the kind of the presentational class. It gives you the styles,
Hmm.
and product dash bg is the class that we just defined to give it
Yep.
the transition tag. So yeah, sorry, it's a bit
No, you're
confusing.
good. You're good.
um, and we need to do the same thing to remove it after, yeah, right after the
Yes. Where do we typically remove?
line 20, below line 24, where we have an
Oh, I see.
image
Yep.
that, yeah,
Thank you.
and we did the same
Yeah.
thing for OBG.
Remove class product BG. Cool.
Exactly. And we need the same thing on the other side of the if. You can just copy what we have.
Yeah. And
Get,
so that's gonna be
yeah.
this, but bring it down here. Then down here, we need to remove that class again. So be class list, remove
Hmm.
product BG. Cool.
And we need to do the same thing, moving the definition of BG outside of the start method.
Yes. Yes, we do. BG.
Mhm. There you go. All right. So now, hopefully, after all of these changes, it should be a nicer sort of transition between the two pages.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was quick, but the gray box is
Yeah.
the gray box is like popping out, and now
Hmm.
it'll kind of collapse inwards. That's
Yes.
so cool. So cool.
Yeah. 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 It's a lot of fun to play with the animations.
Mhm.
I'm not an animations or CSS expert, as you probably guessed by my class names, but yeah, it's a lot of fun to play with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so fun, and I'm super thrilled to be seeing more and more of this stuff pop up in the like browser because we were talking in the green room ahead of time, but like having seamless transitions like this is one of the things that like native mobile experiences have like quote always had on the browser. Like oh you could slide between pages and stuff like that. Like it looks nice and seamless, and the download a document, download another document model of the web and browsers just hasn't cooperated with that.
Mm,
And to do this, you've had to like set up like you've had to have a whole single page application, which, as we've seen, introduces its own like routing issues and whatnot. And so to see more and more of this stuff land in the browser, land in the way that like I imagine most browsers are gonna have an option where you could turn off transitions. Like as a user, you could turn off transitions, like prefers reduced transition or something, um,
Hmm.
giving people more control rather than JavaScripting it away.
Yes. So actually, I've seen a tweet recently that the upcoming version of this API will have the transitions disabled by default if the user has prefers reduced motion
Okay.
enabled. This isn't the case right now, so the transitions are not disabled by default, but they will be, and you can manually opt in to say, okay, I actually want to have some transitions, but I'm going to handle them separately, right? I'm going to listen for
Mhm.
the media query and do like slower transitions or something like that. So it's still the option. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
All right. Cool. Is there any more you wanted to show off, or are we good here, Maxi?
Yeah, no, we're good. There is a lot more to see. I'm gonna share the links to the docs that have some really cool demos as well about all of the things you can do with these transitions,
Hmm.
with all the kind of the power of CSS.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. While you're sharing links, would you mind also sharing a link to your blog post about what we just did today?
Yes, let me find that. The
Yeah.
blog post, yeah, explains a lot of the things we've been talking about. I think makes
Hmm.
has some nice, I guess, illustrations that make it easier to see what's going on behind the hood when
Hmm.
you take a screenshot, you take another screenshot, all those sort of things. So yeah.
Y'all go follow Maxi on Twitter. He's got some cool demos. It was super cool to just see this pop up. Additionally, Maxi and I like to both hang out in the Lunch Dev Discord. Let me just drop a link to that in the chat. So come join us on Discord if you want to see more cool stuff going on as well. See a wonderful, inclusive, inviting community of practice for web developers. Come join us there. I think you'll love it. And y'all, if you're into streams like this where you see some cool aspects of building great user experiences for the web, you should catch up on more semantics episodes. You should hit the purple follow button. That way you get notified whenever we go live. But also, you should know about some of the streams coming up this Friday. I'm gonna be getting a first look at the new enhance.dev meta framework, I suppose, for web components. It brings server rendering, ergonomics, file-based routing, the stuff you love from Next.js and Remix. It brings that into the world of web components. I'm super excited for that. Next week, Todd Libby is coming back to demonstrate some of the learnings he's had from his research with the W3C on deceptive patterns and the framework for accessible specification of technologies, I think is what FAST stands for. The following Tuesday, Graham the Dev is coming on. We're talking about convincing the business to invest in accessibility. Lots of really cool stuff. So if you want to see the schedule and just keep apprised, um, you're going to want to go over to semantics.dev, or you're going to want to follow Semantics on Twitter. Stick around, chat. We are going to find someone to raid. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for being here today. And Maxi, thank you so much for your time and for putting together this awesome demo. Like, it's stuff like this that make me just so phenomenally excited for the future of the web and what we're going to be able to do in these robust ways. So thank you so much for coming on, Maxi.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. Um, and yeah, with that, I will see y'all on Friday. Bye, y'all.